Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can, and they continue with Amnesia, a machine for pigs. Blind. Let's go deeper into the machine for pigs.
Down here, Daddy! Faster, faster!
Am I just supposed to jump down? It seems like a stupid idea, but... like, that seems like an easy way to break your legs. This leaking world. The bottle of gin was empty. Sleep seemed impossible. Above the skyline of London, you could only see the temple rising into the smog. October 22nd, 1899. Naturally once bled, the product must be sealed, dehaired, and scraped readily for gum rolling and evisceration. For this, we pass them through the steam reservoir, which is kept at a constant temperature by passing excess high pressure venting from the engines via the boiler and a series of large copper pipes into a stone chamber just below the workhouse. At the center of the machine, there is a component that must be kept at a consistently low temperature, which controls operations of the processing of the product throughout the system. Alongside this, refrigeration is of the utmost importance in retaining the product quality, and it also requires heat to be removed from certain areas of the machine. The problems are therefore combined into a single solution: the removal of heat from some areas and the requirements for increased heat in others. Conducting panels draw heat using the principles of convection regulated by a boiler and sending freezing air along one set of pipes in one direction and superheated vapors in another.
Isn't it dangerous allowing this filthy discharge to collect so close to the core?
We can use the flow to drive the turbines. There will always be a torrent of excreta flooding through these tunnels. We can use this to supplement the steam production and ensure constancy.
God, the stench! This fecal matter is the true product of the age.
The flooded tunnels. My mysterious friend is correct. The sewers are indeed flooded. To descend further, I will have to find the local sluice pumps to drop the water levels. The smell is almost unbearable. It makes me gag. Why should the saboteur have flooded the tunnels, though? What did he cope to achieve? Is there a water monster? As there was in The Dark Descent? Sluice Gate 2. August the 1st, 1899, several of the older forms have breached their containment area and escaped into the sewers. They reminded me of my limitations. This is no Helm, and I am no Eliyahu, at least, not quite yet. This is about Jewish folklore? Because Helm is a town in Poland which used to have throughout history, back from pretty much like the late Middle Ages, a pretty sizable Jewish population due to the actually state guaranteed religious tolerance. Like there was. Obviously, I'm not saying it was some kind of a multicultural paradise in which nobody persecuted Jews ever, but comparatively speaking, they had state guaranteed protections, so there were quite a lot of Jews in Poland throughout history, and I think this might be because the most famous story about a golem is specifically about a golem from Prague. So I'm not entirely sure if I will check after playing and put the relevant links in the description if this was a story about a golem as well or some other kind of Jewish folklore. But yeah. Not quite yet. It is the heat generated from keeping the doorway between open that is to blame. We cannot simply pack them about with coolant as we do at the center where the doorway is. The later versions are kept safe by the freezing temperature of the towers. Up here, where the air is hot and fetid, they become overheated and their duality tears them asunder as the other place flies from their cells and the vitae splinters. They live sporadically, torn from one world to the other and back again in violent, unpredictable bursts. For a few seconds they are creatures of this world, then they are torn away and cease to have a physical form. The vicious ripping back and forth between worlds have driven them quite insane. I have ordered the affected areas sealed and will not allow my loyal workers to enter. These are damned places now, the abode of our failed experiments, ghosts of fear and spite. Okay, so it seems he gained access to the other world, from which was also, featured and talked about prominently in the first Amnesia. Because this is the gate number 2. Shouldn't there be a passage back? Oh, I guess it's through here. Okay, that's where I came from originally.
But we can save them. We can set them free. We can replace a rotten old world with a clean new one. Mr. Mandus, you sound every bit the fanatic. Well, how can I be otherwise, Professor? How can any man of ethics simply stand by and watch this world drown in its own excrement? And your engineer, this visionary with whom you have embarked upon this course, does he share your views? Indeed he does. Indeed he does. The poor fellow has seen it all before. Now, this is not the first great civilization he has wept for. And so you set about things immediately upon your return? Naturally. These things cannot be left to rot upon the tree. And sponsors were remarkably easy to find. I tell you, Professor, a trail of greed brings rich men to your door like pigs to truffles.
So he, and by that I mean I, had an engineering friend who has seen the fall of civilization before? Would he come from that other place? You know, that other world? Is that engineer not a human? Is what I'm asking. Because, to be honest, he's sort of in the human world. I don't think, like, once civilization as a sort of concept, you know, once first civilizations sprang up, I don't think you could say you've witnessed a fall of a civilization. I guess you could at a given point in history. For example, when the Western Roman Empire fell, some people could say that was a fall of a civilization, but obviously no one would be around who witnessed that if he was a man. Like it's the cusp of the 20th century. So yeah, I'm leaning sort of into the possibility that that friend of mine, the engineer, was not actually a... Okay, I'm thoroughly confused as far as where I went. Okay, I was here. February 17th, 1899, and they said, "Look, my darlings, can you see it?" And they said, "Yes, Daddy, yes, we see it. A tall, weathered cap of a steep-sided pyramid, so like those of Egypt, stone falling away from the summit, vines crawling about, intertwining the stack of serpents that thrive about the steps. A palpable sense of stillness, a weight of forgotten. And this here, this is where the king sat, and this is where the priests lived. This house, this is the house of the dead. And here, where the sun strikes, this is where they threw the hearts that were not consumed. Now, my darlings, they most certainly were not savages. You see, They believed that the sky could fall on their heads, and they truly believed that offering blood was the only way of stopping this from happening. Perhaps, my darling, perhaps they were mistaken altogether, or perhaps the tragedy was that they could simply not spill enough blood to prevent the sky from falling in upon them. Okay, so that opens the other gate. Mandus post-Diluvian. That's done it. Now I can enter the strange decontamination chamber once again and move onwards. The waters are pushed back, making their way to the bilge clear, where I can divert the remainders of this filthy torrent back into Thames, where it belongs, and clear the path to the center of the machine. Okay, so this is the decontamination chamber, but I am kind of interested in what's on the other side of the door. Oh, I can't go back. Okay, so I guess I won't be knowing that. Like, I was interested in seeing what's up there. Okay, so those are the man pigs at the table, feasting seemingly on flesh, maybe even on flesh of the other man pigs. It's difficult to tell, but those shapes are kind of large to be just simple people. Huh. So this one is playing with blocks. To be honest, it kind of makes me sad. Like, like that's horrible to begin with. What happened to those people, because they were like mentally ill, or like maybe even mentally disabled, and they were transformed into those horrible beings because the protagonist is crazy, I assume. Well, he clearly is crazy. I'm not even assuming that. But I assume he had no actual good reason to do any of this. But this you know, shows that there's still some level of gentleness and like childlike personality in them if they still play in their free time. Remember, work together, sleep alone. Fraternizing will not be tolerated. Disposal tubes, emergency access only. Okay, this is probably where I'm supposed to be going. Again, this is just sad. Like, look at it. It's like cowering, or maybe even crying. So I guess I have to jump into one of those holes. Okay, let's do it. Okay, I'm almost at the bottom of the machine, judging from this. Flood breach. Emergency shutdown in place. From tide to spin. He placed his head in the vise and spun the wheel until the skull cracked and the thoughts leaked onto his shoes. It relieved the pressure for a while, but it soon returned.
You seem to have undergone quite a profound conversion in Mexico, Mr. Mandus.
You could not have seen it yourself and not, Professor. As we disembarked, even through my fever, I saw the detritus of this so-called progress. I saw starvation and disease, rot and destruction polluting the waters of the Empire. We are ruiners, you and I, and all of us, and we make the world unclean.
And you took it upon yourself to act as Redeemer.
Professor, I would not be so presumptuous. I am merely a conduit. I am constructing an architecture to wrestle our damnation to the ground and smother it with steam.
He's here! He's here! I said you'd come.
A nest of wretches. Dear God, a whole nest of those foul creatures. No mind. My instincts have drawn me thus far, and I am sure somewhere in this dank complex is a means of further descent. I will not see their faces as they go about their dark business, and yet I watch them sleep and eat and play, and they are so very human, so very childlike. And I will not think of what I've seen, of the chairs and the cages, and I will not think of how such monsters might be sculpted. And the pump rooms. These must be the bilge pumps. I am at the heart of the saboteur's efforts. In order to keep his flood in place, he must have disabled these vast pumps, but he was clearly rushed. Thus far, he left most of his work incomplete, his clumsy efforts reduced to simply switching off all he could find. If I can locate the controls, the remedy will be simple.
Ahead, the trickle to still waters. I dragged myself deeper into the temple, downward ever, towards a wind that held the voices of my children, beckoning me to set them free.
Mandus Processing Company. Okay, I for a second there, I was hoping it would have read something more sort of interesting or esoteric. Was there a pig's head floating in mid-air for like a second? I kinda think there was. Ensure our wheels are in place for the correct operation of the pumps. valves and pipes. Another pump. It seems once again I must engage it. I cannot help but feel I am trapped in some great game, forced to undertake endless Herculean tasks for the promised reward of my darling children. That's some very trite fourth wall break attempts there, you know. The protagonist thinking he's in a okay, I'm dead. The protagonist thinking he's in a game. How very original. I'm not sure if I was supposed to have done that. In fact, well, maybe I was. Like, I couldn't have gotten here from the other level. But that's just a loop. How did that help me? I don't think it did. I think it was just a detour. Finding the children, the flood is drained, they have prevailed, the saboteur is beaten, my heart pounds with excitement, even as my head spins and shoulders and shudders in feverish anticipation. How this machine now throbs about me, sensing its rebirth is imminent. The final descent beckons me to enter, as the lily once lay on our wedding bed and summoned me into manhood. It's a weird moment to think of your wedding night, but the children dancing. The stairs are steep, the sun beating on his neck as he pulls them up. Veins pop in his forearms, but he cannot deviate. He is a man driven by love. Only love. Okay, this episode has been long enough, so I'm going to pause it here. That's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.